I got outplayed by gun and ion cannon platforms in Homeworld Remastered multiplayer and lost my 1v1 match. Now I will show you my mistakes so you don't repeat them when you come up against a player using the same tactic. In this match I was playing with the Kushan faction from Homeworld 1 against a player using the Hiigaran faction from Homeworld 2. The map is a small 2-player one with few resource asteroid fields which are all on the same plane, meaning there is little need to move in 3D except when attacking enemies to surprise them. The resource harvesting opening with the Kushan faction I sometimes use is just to build several resource harvesters on both my carrier and mothership with the addition of a research ship so I can start researching as soon as possible to unlock new ship types. The reason I move my carrier on top of the asteroid resource field is because the drop-off point for harvesters on the carrier is on its bottom side, while for the mothership it is at the back, which is why I move it to the front of the asteroids. This way the harvesters travel the least distance to and from the field and bring in resources faster. To expand to a new resource field, I would need a mobile refinery or another carrier if I don't want to send my first carrier out there alone. My first research is the one for scouts and fighter drive, while I am making a beginner's mistake here by not constructing any probes and sending them out to check what my opponent is up to. In this match I decided to keep my mothership and carrier back and wait to construct a mobile refinery before expanding onto a new resource field. This, however, is not the optimal strategy, and you should send your carrier to stake claim of an additional asteroid field as soon as you start a new match. Here I exchanged my carrier for the mobile refinery, sending the carrier to start harvesting operations on the next closest asteroid resource field. I also doubled down on the mobile refinery idea, with one more to make sure there is no slowdown of drop-off for harvested resources. This can be overkill, but it depends on the size of the asteroid field being mined and the number of harvesters you have working it. As it turns out, both I and my opponent came to this asteroid field with the intention to harvest it, and he had his carrier already much closer than I did. Another thing I did differently in this match was to build the Defender spacecraft instead of a mass of interceptors, as I wanted to see how they would fare against what I expected to be mass wings of interceptors from the Hiigaran faction, which is what most players build at first. These defender ships of mine can't deal a lot of damage to the enemy harvesters, but I harassed them nonetheless until I noticed what the enemy carrier had built, the first gun platform. These are stationary weapon systems which can only be moved once, and players very rarely invest in them. They are relatively cheap to build, take some time to produce, and have 2-point defense turrets which cover 360 degrees. This development prompts me to immediately go into the research and production of a larger craft, like frigates, which can take damage from these platforms much longer than small craft. Since I have massed defenders by now, it doesn't take them long to start blowing up these enemy platforms, but since defenders are very slow, they are also easy targets themselves for the point defense turrets mounted on those platforms. Now, to reduce my enemy's resource collection, I order my defender craft to target the resource drop-off point subsystem on the enemy carrier. Once that subsystem was destroyed, I checked to see what else the carrier had been upgraded with, and I chose to attack the fire control tower instead of the platform production module. This is because I wanted to eliminate the firepower boost the carrier was going to impart on new units. But it would have been better to focus on the production module and stop my enemy from constructing more units to attack me with. Once my mobile refinery arrived to take over the job from the carrier, I had the idea to take my carrier to mess up the enemy's resource collection in other asteroid fields. But this is when the enemy player starts to mass produce his interceptor wings from the mothership, which was slowly moving to take up a new position next to his carrier. This is an aggressive tactic, where you put your mothership in danger, but have new unit production right where the action is happening and are able to support your units much faster. Considering it was still early in the match for your enemy to have enough firepower to take out the mothership, it isn't as dangerous as it might look. I did manage to send my carrier and several repair corvettes guarding it to the enemy resource collection operation, but I had no units with which to engage it, so it was a total failure on my part. The support frigate arrived to the fight by this point, but the number of defender craft I had left was already minimal, and the new enemy wings of interceptors were destroying them one by one. I was already switching over to attack frigates, but the problem with these in the Kushan faction is that they don't work like their original version from Homeworld 1, and the developers never managed to fix this problem. Meaning I was building a useless unit which you should simply skip over when playing this faction. As I saw I was losing this battle, I decided to move my resource harvesters to another field where I already sent my carrier and tried to regroup with the mothership with my combat vessels. I had enough resources to jump my resource controller and my support frigate while I left the harvesters to go on their own power. The problem now is twofold. I'm running out of resources while I'm also at a mismatch of combat ships as my defenders aren't numerous enough to fight the enemy wings of interceptors, while my assault frigates aren't actually capable of doing that despite their description. So now the enemy player is free to harass me at my mothership and my remaining resource harvesting operations. It is true these interceptors don't have the firepower to quickly destroy anything beyond my defender ships, but I also have nothing to take out enemy ships with. And now we come to the main enemy tactic being deployed against me. He will continue being aggressive with both his mothership and carrier, going straight to my mothership and building new gun platforms the whole way, letting them stay where they are deployed after being constructed. My hope and plan was for the frigates to deal with these, but I was already running out of resources to construct any more of them. And then I got one more nasty surprise, as the enemy had already constructed ion cannon platforms, which can rip apart armor on my capital ships, so my frigates stood no chance. At this point I was feeling outplayed and alarmed, as the ships I had were unable to defend my mothership, while I didn't have the resources required to build another type to try to deal with the platforms the enemy player was pumping out behind his mothership and carrier. I wanted to invest in attack bombers, but even that was futile considering the mass interceptors already in play. During this time, I was able to take over the one resource asteroid field, so I decided to simply move my mothership there. It was already taking a lot of damage, and I had no combat units left to defend it with. Just before that, I took the opportunity to congratulate my opponent on his novel tactic. The range of those ion cannon platforms alone was amazing to see, and they wouldn't take long to take down even a mothership. So I simply jumped away, leaving my other ships to be destroyed, as I simply didn't have enough resources to jump all of them away. The only ones I could save were the two resource controllers, or mobile refineries, however you wanna call them. Now, you might think I still have a chance to fight this battle, as I have saved my mothership and some ships, cleared the resource field for myself, and the enemy has no actual ships with a lot of firepower to chase after me with. But this is where I was wrong too. Because, as some of you might have noticed, my enemy never actually moved any of his platforms after construction. They were just deployed from the carrier and mothership at the appropriate distance. This led my opponent to now move them to my new location, and they traveled there even if it was a slow flight. The few bombers, defenders and other ships I had were simply not capable of dealing enough damage fast enough to destroy all these platforms. The main takeaway here is that I needed to jump 2 times to be safe, as the platforms can only be moved once, but I was out of resources to do so. Another important point is that I didn't scout my opponent in the start of the match, and that I produced ineffective ships to deal with his units. For more Homeworld videos, as well as other similar games, check out the cards on the screen or links in the description. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!